What's up everybody, welcome back. I am Xavier Spade and I am now your Zoom magic guru. I'm here to make your Zoom shows better and I'm putting out this little series to help you step up your Zoom magic game. Let's just go. So the last video, the first one of the series, we were talking about the internet and your computer needs. So we were talking about Wi-Fi settings, Wi-Fi frequencies, computers, all this other stuff. And a couple of you had some questions. I'm going to read them in this one and hopefully answer those for you, even though I tried to answer them in the comments. All right, so this isn't really a question, it's just something somebody said. They said 5 Mbps with a lowercase b is for megabit, and with the capital it's for megabyte. That's true. Thanks for adding that as always. A few of you said that. The Illusionologist. That's a pretty long name. If my Wi-Fi sucks, would getting a mobile data hotspot for the stream work better? Maybe. Usually mobile hotspots are 4G and they can be kind of shaky as well. If you have bad Wi-Fi, you probably have a Wi-Fi router, which means it has ports, which means you can get a switch, which means you can have a wired connection. The other side of that is to get a new router with better speeds, like AC, if you really need to use Wi-Fi. So Nash Fung, actually if this is the Nash Fung I'm thinking of, there was a color changing tournament restored card-ish type routine that I used to do from you, and I'm a fan. So he said, okay, so I just bought a Lenovo Carbon X1 Gen 7 and it turns out it's a dual core. Does that mean it's now useless and I need to buy a new one, Gen 8, which is quad core? Not necessarily, but if you want to use OBS, the answer is yes. You do need to upgrade to a quad core if you want to use, which again, I do suggest using OBS. So Francis Minotti says, curious as to your thoughts and experience with Streamlabs OBS versus original OBS. Okay, so Streamlabs OBS is the Streamlabs version of Open Broadcast software, which is integrated into their alert system and their whole ecosystem, which is mainly meant for like Twitch streamers or YouTube streamers. If you're running OBS on a PC, I would suggest regular OBS Studio, just because there's a lot more things you can add to it. Like there's an OBS kind of database where you can download plugins and things to do different things that the regular OBS couldn't do. Those are just not available for Streamlabs OBS. Also, Streamlabs OBS tends to be a little bit heavier on the system. I just don't like it. Just stick with regular OBS if you can. On a Mac, I've never used Streamlabs OBS on a Mac, so I can't answer that if you are using a Mac. All I could talk about is the regular OBS Studio. Hope that helps, Francis. Also, a huge fan. So BT Charge says, I was wondering, since I have a Mac, is Boot Camp a good option? So if you want to use Windows on a Mac, obviously it can work, and you can then use the plugins that aren't available on Mac OBS. The issue is going to be graphics. It's still going to be a problem. It does, you know, if you don't have a graphics card, adding Windows is not going to solve that problem. So it's just something to keep in mind, but that's a good question. And then Tam Vo says, what are the requirements you recommend for laptops? So I kind of breezed over it before, and looking back, I should have made this a little bit more clear. The minimum requirements, in my opinion, for a laptop, if you want to do streaming and use OBS and things like that, you need a quad core processor of some sort, minimum, and a graphics card. You can try to skimp on the graphics card thing, but you're just going to run into issues. A lot of gaming laptops that are semi-affordable have graphics cards built in. Therefore, gaming, they will work with OBS and streaming and help you make your stream look a little bit better. Hope that answers your question. All right, guys, so in this video, we're going to be going over cameras, webcams, things of the sort that you can plug into your computer, or things that you'll need additional hardware to use, and how to use it, how to put it together, the pluses and minuses, quality, all that stuff. We're going to be going into everything right now, so let's just jive right in. Jive? Let's jive. Let's jump jive. All right, so in this video, as I go through the cameras, I'm going to be talking about price versus quality. what I personally think is going to be good within those price ranges. And that includes a good price versus a good quality, so on and so forth. And as the video goes on, you'll see those numbers kind of flip. So to begin with, we'll be starting with the lowest quality, but the best price you can get. And then by the end of the video, we'll be talking about how things can get a little bit crazy, but your quality is going to greatly improve because of it. Okay, so what I have here, this is probably the most common camera you can get. This is the Logitech C920. Now the C920 is by far the most widely used webcam on the market. It's easy to use, you just plug it right in, it works with your computer, you don't have to worry about too much, it'll download the drivers automatically. With the right lighting, this can be a pretty good camera. But there are some downsides. So one of the things we're going to be going over is sensor size. When you're looking at a camera like this, you can't imagine a sensor is going to be very big versus a camera like this. Now this is obviously a much bigger camera, and I can actually show you the sensor right there. If you look at this, the sensor of this camera is literally as big as this is tall. So obviously it's not going to have a very big sensor at all. So if I had to start talking about this, I think the first thing I would say is the price of these can be very low. You know, good quality cameras like this can go for maybe $60 to $100, and they'll last you a long time. I've had this particular camera over 7 years, and it's done great. It still works. I still use it. Not necessarily for professional things, but you know, just for having a quick webcam, it's a good thing to have around. The thing to remember with this is because the sensor is so tiny, you will need a lot of light to make it look good. Now, that may not be an issue for everybody, but it's something to keep in mind if you have space requirements or temperature things that you have to think about, because lights do generate heat. But if you can grab yourself a couple of things, they are a safe option. I wouldn't necessarily, again, use this for a professional show, but if you have to, hey, you do what you got to do. It's still way better than a laptop camera. Let me just say that right off the bat. This is 1,000 times better than a laptop camera. There's different ones out there. I mostly know the Logitech line, so I'll only talk about those. You have this one, you have like the C920, you have their new Stream Cam, you have something like this, which is a Logitech Brio. This one is a little bit more expensive. This one is a 4K camera, and actually it's literally just this piece right here. Right? Comes with a little shield, and yeah, you have the C920E. There's a lot of different webcams you can use that are on the market that range in price from $70 to, I think when I got this one, it was $200. If I had to do it again, I definitely wouldn't buy it, but I fell into the hype, you know? Yeah, so, you know, when you're looking at webcams, look at reviews, look things up online, find out what will work. Some cameras are limited to 720p, some of them are limited to 1080p, some of them only 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second. So take a look at these, at those things, because those are going to determine how your stream looks realistically. If you have a camera that's shooting 30 frames a second at 720, it could be okay, especially for mobile devices, but if you're being broadcasted on a big screen, it may start to get a little fuzzy, and maybe you want to think about stepping it up just a little bit to something 1080p minimum. So some of the pros of this is all you need. You just plug it right in. You don't have to worry about power adapters, lenses, batteries, audio things. These do have built-in mics, wouldn't suggest it. But as far as convenience goes for the price, this is probably the best of the best. Very simple to use, one USB. This one is USB-C. See a little plug right there, it's USB-C. And that's it. And they can vary in price, but you know, I would stick to the lower end stuff. Mid-range stuff, don't go low, mid-range stuff. And with a decent set of lights, you can get by very well with a webcam. Okay, so let's step up the game a little bit and let's talk about the next genre of cameras. And you know, I have to bring this up. I just looked up cameras online and I saw something by Zoom that just came out called the Zoom Q8. Now, supposedly this thing is like a camcorder that has really good XY mics on the back of it, and it can be used as a webcam. Like, it has a webcam function, so you can just plug it in as a USB webcam. I think if you don't have mics, it's a good option. And I think if you don't have a webcam, it's a good option. I think it's about $300 though, so you might want to check that out. The quality is but even with that, the quality is still better than a laptop webcam. So maybe it's something to consider if you're thinking about some audio solutions as well, because it's all one built-in cam and pretty simple to use. It also doubles as a camcorder, so you can just pull it off and walk around with it if you really wanted. It does have a fixed lens, so you're not really going to get a lot of zoom options in there. It'll be more like a GoPro type camera, you know, it's just fixed in one position. But it may be an option for you, so definitely take a look at the Zoom Q8 if you get a chance. It kind of fits in between a webcam and a camcorder in my opinion, so that's why I'm talking about it right now. Okay, so the next one up is a camcorder. Now we're talking about better quality, and the price value can fluctuate, but you know, comparing it to a webcam, it's going to be more expensive usually. So it is something to consider. I've seen some camcorders out there for like $130 that can get you by though, so think about that too. But some of the pluses of these camcorders, right? You have a bigger sensor, which means you don't need as much light. It has auto focus functionality. It has zoom functionality, a lot of them. So you can place it a little bit farther back, zoom in, and you can get like this right here. This is called bokeh, or, you know, see how the background's blurry and I'm not. You'll be able to do that by zooming in and pulling the camera back. You can make it, in fact, if I just move in farther, you see the background gets even more blurry. So it is something to think about. Those are the positive parts of it. But now that we're breaking out of the USB world of webcams, you have to think about how you're going to connect it to your computer, which is going to add cost. So if you're talking about a webcam or a DSLR, this is where the barrier to entry usually breaks people, because of the money you have to invest. So for instance, Elgato makes things like cam links. They're $170. If you want to connect HDMI to USB, that is an option. These are the ones that I use. These are Haswell ones. These things were literally $400, but they do more than a cam link. They actually help compress the video so that you can have higher quality video and the computer doesn't have to do the work to re-encode it. It does it all internally. A cam link doesn't do that. It's raw video, which is going to take power away from your computer or a process that's running like OBS or like something else. This is a Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. This was $600. They have a $230 version that does almost the same thing. It has some differences. So this allows 4 HDMI inputs, 1 HDMI output, a USB-C output. You can connect it to your network, and it has audio inputs. So if you want to plug in microphones, you can do that as well. This is a better option, in my opinion, if you have more than one camera. This will not work with webcams. This will only work with HDMI devices, including game systems, including other computers, including cameras. Anything that's HDMI, you can pass through this device. It is going to be a little bit more difficult to use because obviously this is a professional unit. But when you're talking about the prices of certain things, if I would have known about, if this was out, if this ATEM Mini Pro was out before this Haswell card, maybe I wouldn't have gotten these Haswell cards. This is a pretty new device. Probably would have saved me some money because I have 2 of them. So I paid $800 versus $600 for this unit, and I have twice as many inputs. But this is what it's going to cost you to start using HDMI devices. If you want to step up the quality to that level, you will have to start thinking about these things. This is something that I actually recently got because I've been telling people to get this and they've been getting them, and I figured I should step up my game as well and learn the functions and the power and the menu systems and how to set things up so that when people ask, I can answer their questions. I literally bought this for you. It's a cool device, I'm not gonna lie. It is a very cool device. But this is the downside of using something that's not a webcam. It takes different kinds of stands, different kinds of power needs, different kinds of input needs, and this is the base. So that being said, let's talk about the camcorder now. Now, usually camcorders, they come with a power adapter, so you don't have to worry about getting a false battery or anything like that. Just plug it right in, it charges the battery and will power the camcorder, which is great because if you're doing a bunch of shows, you don't want to have to worry about your camera dying. Another thing is they usually have clean HDMI out, which is super important when you're thinking about this. So yeah, camcorders usually, you don't have to think about that. They usually come with clean HDMI out, which is great. Something you don't have to think about. You just plug it in and it'll show up where you want it to show up, which is awesome. The sensor size is a little bit bigger, which is better for light. It has all these great features. I think the downside of a camcorder is that really there's not many. There really isn't many. You have multiple zoom levels, you have autofocus. I think if you want to get specific things, a basic consumer camcorder is going to limit you because a lot of these functions will be auto functions. So you won't be able to control as much. And the prosumer cameras, I don't think that's where you want to go with this, unless you have a team with you. But I think a camcorder is a good mid-range bet. You can get a good camera between $130 to $300 on Amazon or Best Buy, and it's just a simpler device to use than something like this, which we're going to talk about next. So think about a camcorder, and let's move on to the big boy. Okay, so here we are. This is a DSLR. DSLR by far will give you the best quality out of all of them, out of camcorders and out of everything. You'll usually have manual functions, so you can dial in specifically what you're looking for when you're filming and when you set everything up. The downside is the price. Like a camcorder, you have to think about how you're going to connect it to your computer, the device, the lens, the power, and stands and things of that nature. So if you want to start using DSLR cameras to break into your magic shows online, be prepared because it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be cheap. The price of this can go from somewhat okay to absolutely ridiculous, especially when you start talking about higher end DSLRs, higher end prosumer camcorders, and things of that nature. Not to mention mixing devices, stands, mounts, and then we'll have to break into audio in another video. But what I have here, this is actually the webcam that I use on my computer, which we'll talk about in a later video. This is the Panasonic GH4, and it has the 12 to 35 lens on there, 4 micro four thirds, so I don't have any kind of speed booster or anything, if you know what that is. This is all native hardware. I also had to get a false battery for it, so when I plug this in, it is constantly powered, and my audio on my computer is done through a mixer with an XLR mic, so I don't deal with any audio through the camera whatsoever. This camera, if you were to buy it used, you could probably get one for about 800 bucks. The lens will probably cost you another $300. The lens I'm using on here is an equivalent lens. This is the 18 to 35 Sigma Art series lens, the 1.8. That lens was about $800 on its own. So the cost is going to be a very different thing. The bonus, let's start with the positive. The positive is it looks amazing. The negatives, well, not all DSLRs have good autofocus. This one in particular is notorious for having terrible autofocus. The other downside is the price. You know, it's very easy to go crazy with DSLRs, you know, lenses and attachments and all these other things. And then, you know, when you add in the cost of the input devices and cables and all this other stuff, you can easily, just to start using a DSLR, you need about $3,000 to $4,000 just to use one on your stream. If money's no option, I would absolutely suggest using a DSLR. They are top-notch, top quality, and once you understand how a DSLR works, you have a camera that you can shoot trailers with and things for social media, which if you're doing Zoom shows at this point, let's get real, you need to be using social media. It's no longer an option, and anybody who tells you otherwise, frankly, has no idea what they're talking about. You're advertising your shows on Zoom. You talk about them on social media. You talk about them all over the place. Why not give people nice things to look at before they come see your show? Step your game up. If this is the route that you want to go, this is an option. Another thing you'd have to be really considerate of is that clean HDMI out. Luckily, Panasonic's have clean HDMI out. The camera I'm using up here, which is a Canon 6D Mark II, does not. So if I were to, which in another video, I'm going to be connecting these cameras to my laptop and recording, and maybe even doing a live stream, and you'll see what I mean by clean HDMI out more. But basically, it doesn't have it. The newer Canons, I think the M50 does, their mirrorless line does, Sony does as well. So if you're going to look at DSLRs, you need to look at that as well. That is going to be super important. The last thing you want is to buy a camera that doesn't have clean HDMI out. You spend all that time and money to get that thing, and it's not what you need. In between there, you can get something like this. This is like a mini point and shoot. I think the Sony ones are a little bit better for that, but these things have autofocus. They work automatically. You don't have to think about it. They have built-in monitors if you want. This is another option for you if you want it, but I really wouldn't go with a Canon one. I would definitely go with a Sony one if I had to use a point and shoot. And again, it allows you to just make content outside of that and have some dope pictures and video. These cameras usually have bigger sensors. So like I showed it earlier, but in a camera like this, look at the size of that sensor compared to this, right? This camera is literally the height of this sensor on this camera. So if I had to compare, the sensor on this camera is probably about the size of a pea. Not very big at all. And other cameras have bigger sensors. This camera right here is a micro four thirds camera. The camera I'm filming on up here is a full frame camera. They have APS-C cameras, which are in between. If you decide to go bigger than that and you get like a Red camera or a Arri Alexa, if you want to spend that kind of money, you know, everything has a different sensor size. The sensor size isn't determined by 4K, 8K, 1080p. This is a 4K camera. This is a 4K camera. This does 4K shooting. This does 4K shooting. This sensor is easily 4 times as big as this one. So sensor size does not determine 4K or anything like that. You have to remember that. I have, you know what, I'm gonna get it.
Six and a half hours later.
Okay, what I have right here is a DJI Osmo Pocket. This camera is smaller than this, and this shoots 4K. Okay, look at this tiny little thing. Look at this tiny little thing. That's 4K. That's a 4K sensor right there. Right? It's a 4K sensor. So don't be fooled by the whole 4K talk and, you know, where they show a camera like this and they're like, 4K. Doesn't mean much. What means a lot more is like the processing power, the color science. And if you think about it, my phone has a 4K sensor in it, but why do these pictures look so much better than these pictures? It's the processing. The phone can process the images and the information better than the webcam can. So, something to keep in mind. So the last thing I'll talk about is the phone. Now there are ways to use your phone as a webcam. And if you're in a pinch, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good for niche things. I wouldn't use it as the main camera. Mostly because every time I've installed the software to make that run, it would always make my camera overheat. And when it overheats, you get frame stutters and jitters. Just like with a webcam, something like this, if you don't have good light, it's gonna slow down to try to brighten. So it's gonna be very choppy. And that's what starts to happen when this one overheats. So, I don't know if I'd use the phone. I would kind of stick to a dedicated camera if I could. It does have its place. I think there's moments where it could be a really cool.
I'm a scrub, but you still love me, you love me. Even though I don't make no money, you've been there when the times get ugly. I'm a scrub, but you still love me, you love me. I'm a scrub, but you still love me, you love me. Even though I don't make no money, You've been there when the times get ugly.